many entertainment and business jobs start getting replaced by AI. Right? For example, over the past year, we've seen another type of AI content explode, and it's not just trash, it's fraud. We're talking about completely AI-written books that make themselves look deceptively similar to a real author's book, right, with the aim of stealing that author's customers. And actually, recently, the Washington Post reported on several of the victims of this scam, that including well-known tech journalist Kara Swisher, because just weeks before the release of her new memoir, Burn Book, she spotted dozens of counterfeits on Amazon, including a biography promising the inside story of her life from an author she had never heard of, and her finding a cover that showed an AI-generated image of herself. And these garbage clone biographies, they went on and on, each one claiming a slightly different title, author, and cover image. And presumably the entire text was AI-generated as well, pulling whatever publicly available information was on the internet, or even just making shit up, something large language models are known to do. Right? And we've seen some of these fake books just outright lie in at least one way, claiming to have been written by the real author. With, for example, publishing industry analyst Jane Friedman finding that 5 books did this with her name back in August. And Friedman writing at the time, "I know my work gets pirated and frankly I don't care. But here's what does wrinkle me. Garbage books getting uploaded to Amazon where my name is credited as the author. And it falls on me, the author, the one with a reputation at stake, to get these misleading books removed from Amazon. I don't own the copyright to these junk books. I don't exactly own my name either. Lots of other people who are also legit authors share my name after all. So on what grounds can I successfully demand this stop, at least in Amazon's eyes?" And then also in this space, instead of just trying to rip off the original book, we're seeing scammers just bill themselves as summaries, companions, or workbooks for real bestsellers. Right? So we have this situation where, yeah, the real big names that have a lot of clout, they can appeal to Amazon to get the fakes taken down, but most people don't have that recourse. And I mean, it's already hard enough for small and unknown authors to break into the market and build a readership. Now they've also got to compete with an ocean of AI-generated trash that's looking to siphon off a few sales like parasites. With this, we've seen some authors reacting to their online clones on social media, like comedian Paul Scheer.
That's what popped up. The biography of Paul Scheer by Philip James, the real Paul Scheer story. Paul Scheer beyond the script, the wit and wisdom of Paul Scheer set out on a comedic odyssey. How many books have I not written?
But then, of course, the other victims here are the people who wasted their money on this shitty junk. Like, to go back to Kara Swisher, that BS AI book included things like, "If you don't have any confidence, you can't possibly be confident." And in addition to nonsensical quotes, right, you have a text alternating between first and third person perspectives. And it's likely not going to get better. With the executive director of the Authors Guild telling the Post, "I think we are going to be dealing with an explosion of AI-generated books before we get anywhere near fixing the problem." Though, to be fair, reportedly Amazon is trying to fix this issue, because while it does allow AI-generated content to be sold on its platform, it doesn't allow content that infringes on intellectual property, as well as books whose descriptions are misleading or whose substance is, quote, typically disappointing to customers. So notably, the lack of any requirement that authors disclose their work as AI-generated to customers certainly encourages that disappointment, which is why you have people like the Authors Guild pushing to change that policy. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, how they try to curb all this AI bullshit. But the current situation is disappointing to me as like an avid reader, and actually someone after all these years that's actually finally interested in writing something. I bought this book and everything. Though, side note, I just want to attach to the end of the story. Since I last talked about and recommended Project Hail Mary and then the Bobiverse franchise, I get messages asking me like, what am I listening to? And because I do not want to start a book club, because I enjoy it too much, I do not want to turn it into a job, and I also don't want to add it to the list of side projects that I just abandoned. I am currently in the middle of this bad boy. And well, technically, you shouldn't review a book before it's over. I'm liking it. And honestly, I think person-to-person book recommendations and things like book talk in general are going to be more important than ever with all this AI garbage bullshit we're dealing with. In a world of AI fraud and then eventually AI competition that is legitimate, a lot of what's going to come down the pipeline that's important, I think, is human curation, which is already important now. It's going to be even more important moving forward. And then Warner Bros. Is making some wild gamer decisions. And I'm not talking about like choosing Aerith over Tifa. Sorry, me as a teenager, our preferences have changed. But rather, I'm talking about them choosing live service games as the future for the company. Right? Because this comment was made by the head of WB's gaming division, JB Perrette, at a Morgan Stanley speaking event. Also, if you're not familiar, you might be asking, like, what does a live service game mean? To put it simply, it's a game that's constantly in development and releasing new content, which in turn means that it needs to be as engaging as possible in order to keep people coming back. And practically speaking, these are often free-to-play games, and they rely on microtransactions to make money to continue fueling development costs. But a lot of people felt WB's comments were especially weird because of its history with gaming. Right, last year it released the Harry Potter game, which ended up being the most sold game that year. But then this year it dropped Suicide Squad, which bombed hard. And because of that, Perrette said, "The challenge we've had is that our business historically has been very AAA console based, and so, as you know, that's a great business when you have a hit like Harry Potter. It makes the year look amazing. amazing. And then when you don't have a release, or unfortunately we also have disappointments, we just released Suicide Squad this quarter, which was not as strong. It just makes it very volatile. But there, he's missing a key thing. One of the reasons so many people fucking hated Suicide Squad was because it was full of all this live service bullshit. It constantly tried to push you to its in-game store that ruined the experience for people playing, which is why we're seeing some of the biggest names in gaming like Moist Critical saying, how can a company shit out a Suicide Squad game, watch it flop and die, and then still say they want more live service games? Absolute lobotomites at WB. And in general, there's backlash online towards the company embracing live service games, which also, and we touch on this in a lot of different avenues, well, generally, they are hated in the gaming space. Still, a lot of people at times buy live service games, which is why the industry sees them as generally successful. Right? And it's probably why over 500 studios have said that they're working on live service games right now, and why Warner Bros. Wants to double down on them. With Perret saying, rather than just launching a one-and-done console game, how do we develop a game around, for example, a Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter that is a live service where people can live and work and build and play in that world in an ongoing basis? Now, that said, despite live service having kind of become this toxic word in gaming, it's arguably not just by itself the problem they have. I mean, some of the most popular games out there right now, League, WoW, CSGO, PoE, they're all live service games, and most people don't mind how they do monetization. Though a big aspect of that is that most are free-to-play games, with everyone kind of having the understanding that, hey, the developers and studios have to get paid somehow. It's viewed as a trade-off, where the game is free, but it lives off of microtransactions if you're making an experience that is consistently fun. But honestly, as far as what the future of this space looks like, it's based off of people like yourself. Right? If more games that are essentially forced into being a live service game fail, and the people making decisions, they lose money, then yeah, it increases the likelihood of the industry changing in the way that you want. But if the industry continues seeing a number of these games doing wild numbers despite all the online complaining, that just becomes noise. It's an annoyance tax. Because a lot of this comes down to consumer behavior. These companies are not in the business of purposefully losing money. And if anything, they are in the business of finding the line of how much they can fuck with you, how much they can annoy you while still getting your money. Them's the breaks. And actually, before I leave this story, there was actually some breaking news as I was recording this. It deals with both WB Gaming and actually our space, because they have now killed off Rooster Teeth, with Rooster Teeth saying in a memo that it was shutting down production with the exception of its podcast studio, and saying that part of the company alongside its IPs are being shopped around for a buyer. And as far as why this is happening, you had Rooster Teeth giving a few reasons, but it mostly boiled down to, quote, challenges facing digital media resulting from fundamental shifts in consumer behavior and monetization across platforms, advertising, and patronage. And obviously there have been a lot of reactions to the news, people reminiscing about the crazy amount of shows and content they've done over the years. So people also saying, over the last few years, it feels a little rough due to toxic workplace allegations. But I don't know, all of this is still fresh for me, and I'm just kind of thinking like, wow, another former Titan down. Feels like very few establishments that were kind of like the old guard have survived. And then I hope you enjoy getting your 217th COVID vaccine. It's something you might expect to hear over on Twitter from someone that's not a fan of the COVID vaccine, seeing someone get one, right? A hyperbolic jab, if you will. But here's the thing. Apparently, there was one guy that maybe got a response like that, and he was like, bet. Just some random 62-year-old German man. And you might have actually heard about this a while ago, though the number was different. Because a little while back, German prosecutors actually confirmed that this guy had obtained at least 130 coronavirus vaccines over a 9-month period. And so they investigated him, suspecting fraud. But eventually, the guy actually revealed he had had 217 shots in 29 months, meaning that he got vaccinated almost twice a week for 2.5 years. And as far as why he did this to himself, reportedly he only cited private reasons. So prosecutors were like, oh, you're not a fraudster, you're just crazy. And they ended up dropping the case. But then there was an update. Medical researchers asked, hey, can we study you? Because this shit's so crazy, you are a one of one. And he actually agreed. In fact, he actually seemed very eager, with them saying that he insisted that they give him another shot during the study. Like the man is a vaccine addict. But so with all this, they hypothesized that the sheer overwhelming number of shots could have caused his immune system to become fatigued. But here's the thing. When the researchers published their results in the journal Lancet Infectious Diseases this week, that is not what they found. Instead, not only did they find no fatigue, no observable side effects, and no harm to his immune system, they found that he had more immune cells in a control group that had received the standard 3-dose vaccine regimen. Which, big disclaimer, please, for the love of God, that is not to say you should pause this video and go try to break his record. Because one, you should never pause these videos. If anything, you should watch them at 0.75 speed. Apparently that helps videos, and may help your non-Philip DeFranco initiated friends understand what I'm saying, since I talk like a meth addict half the time. But also because this is just one guy. This is just one case. And public health officials are clear. They do not recommend hypervaccination. Now, they recommend updating your shot, especially if you're older. In fact, last month, the CDC recommended that people over 65 get a second dose of the new COVID vaccine released last fall. Yeah, interesting story, and I guess congratulations to that guy for not growing a third arm. And then I want to start this out by congratulating our latest weekly winner, Jalen B. Another $500 credit towards your choice of SeatGeek tickets. Jalen's one, been waiting for Megan Thee Stallion to tour, and also two, has apparently been a viewer for 12 years. Oh my God, thank you. Most of the people in my life, last 6. You're a champ. I love your face. I appreciate you. But also, for everyone else, that is right. In case you missed it, SeatGeek and I are sending several of you and your friends to your favorite live events. So listen up. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. And I told them that I wanted to do something special for you this year. And they came through in a very real way, because for the next few months, we're giving away $500 in SeatGeek credit weekly. Every week, someone like you will win $500 towards any of SeatGeek's 70,000 events. Professional basketball is in full swing. March Madness is on the horizon. You have artists like Drake and Bad